Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm sorry for a slight delay in the presentation. We talk about belief uh, in these lectures. Today, because it happens to be the last lecture before we are going to have a summer break, so what I decided was that I should kind of summarize the presentations that I've made on beliefs in the last few sessions, so that when I start the next presentation, it should be on belief in prophets. The first thing that I would want to mention that we've already discussed at length is that, contrary to the popular understanding amongst many people, belief, the way it has been presented in the Quran, is based on understanding, based on arguments, based on intellectual appreciation of some realities which are extremely important for all of us, and yet they cannot be seen. So, why is it that we have been expected to acknowledge those realities? Because of the arguments that are presented to support the claim that they are real, they are genuine. And the person who rejects them, provided that the presentation has been done properly, turns out to be somebody who is not a good person, is doing it knowingly, is stubborn, is arrogant. However, there's always a possibility, particularly when we are not living in the times of prophets, that the presentation has not been done properly. Then it could be anything. So the Quranic claim is that if you believe, it is because, or it ought to be because, you understand the reasons of the reality of those beliefs. And therefore, believing is not a one-off incident, decision. It's an ongoing process. It can never stop. It is a challenge on a daily basis. Because if you look at the beliefs that we have been asked to acknowledge and continue to internalize, they explain the unseen realities that are behind what we can see. And each day we come across uh, many happenings, many incidents which have to be explained in the light of our beliefs. And at times you struggle, but that's what the challenge of belief is all about. So the first thing I'll do is that I'll just present one verse, although there are a number of different verses that explain and confirm what I'm saying, but just one verse would hopefully suffice to support my claim that belief is based on intellect. It is verse number 100 of Surah number 10, Surah Yunus, and verse 100. It says, Wama kana li nafsin antomena. It is not possible for any human to believe, illa biiznillah, except by the permission of God, Allah. That's the first part. وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. And He covers those people who do not use their intellect with filth, with contamination. Now, what it means is that if you do not use your intellect properly, then you are covered by the filth, garbage of the evil that you do. And when that happens, then you can't believe. God is not going to allow you to believe. this verse has many different dimensions, but the one important conclusion that we can draw very confidently is that the Quran is telling us that unless you use your intellect properly, you cannot believe. So that was it that I wanted to clarify at the outset. We have done two of the three important beliefs that the Quran invites all humans to acknowledge: belief in God and belief in life hereafter. We are yet to talk about belief in prophets. So I'll just briefly mention the arguments that the Quran presents to confirm that these beliefs make a lot of sense. So let's take belief in God first. Before we discuss belief in God, we ought to be clear that when we accept something as a reality, what are the sources? What makes humans feel confident that there are certain realities which are obvious, which cannot be denied? So there are essentially three different, call them sources of knowing realities. One source is intuition, call it human nature, something that we are all born with. You don't even have to ask for arguments for them. They're obvious. So, I mean, we all have an aesthetic sense. I mean, we see a portrait and we say it's brilliant. We see another and we say it's just unimpressive, ugly. What is it that causes us to come to that conclusion? There's something already there in us, in the way our our inner soul, our nature has been designed. So that's one source. There are many examples of it. The other source that enables us to understand reality is sense perception. Probably that's the most obvious one. We see, we hear, we smell, we touch, and we taste. I'm always nervous when I start counting them, but alhamdulillah, five of them, right? They also say that there's a sixth sense, there's a seventh sense, but I'm not going to talk about it. So these five senses are there, and if any of them enables us to get information, we'll say it's confirmed. I see it, and therefore it is. I hear it, and therefore it's somebody is speaking, or noise is coming, and so on. So that's the other source. And the third source is what we are all very fond of talking about, and that is intellect, uh, our ability to understand, which essentially employs our intuitive understanding as well as our understanding that we get through perception. That's the basic data, and intellect is like a software. It's a program. It's a computer where this data is kind of analyzed, and then conclusions are drawn. That's what happens. So I mean, people give examples of somebody passing by a forest jungle and uh, is he sees smoke and comes to the conclusion that there's fire somewhere without having seen fire. So it's really a conclusion that is drawn. Okay, so what the Quran does is that it urges the reader to do both: look within and look in the outside world. Use your the abilities to see, to hear, and think about it, and then draw conclusions. Uh, but let's first take intuition. Intuition is a source, and the Quran does mention that we know God intuitively. Uh, and does mention also, interestingly, the reason why we know him intuitively. The Quran tells us that we know God from within because we have met God. Now, this is an interesting claim, but that's what the Quran says. All humanity, before they were sent to this world, had the occasion of meeting God. And then they were sent to this world, and that the memory of that meeting was kind of erased. So you might ask them, what was the great idea about? Well, the idea was that even though the memory is not there, you have you have a feeling. You still feel that there's something that happened. Uh, that is why the Quran says that, you know, at times when humans are in difficulty, desperate for their survival, for instance, they pray to only, they ask for help from only one God, one creator, because he's there. You, whether you claim that you believe in him or you don't believe in him, no matter what, your inner system has an appreciation of his existence and his presence. So that's one point that the Quran makes. Uh, I keep saying that is the reason why sometimes when a person who, for instance, doesn't claims that he doesn't believe in God, and all of a sudden, for one reason or another, realizes that indeed he's there, he or she gets emotional. Why would you get emotional about something that you come to know about? Unless there is something within you that tells you that, you know, you had this contact with him. He's there within you. And that realization makes you feel that what you did was wrong. And, you know, whatever tears or whatever expressions of emotions are there, they are a testimony of the fact that this inner feeling, inner appreciation has been acknowledged. The second source of perception is obviously something that we all acknowledge. But there is another dimension of perception, which is history. History is actually the perception of the people who came before us. Um, at times, obviously, history is unreliable, but at times it's so reliable that you can't deny it. You can deny the fact that um, a certain incident took place at the time of the partition of subcontinent. But the fact that partition took place, you can't deny it. I mean, the information has come to us in such overwhelmingly convincing sources by the entire generations that it cannot be wrong. Uh, it seems that the Quran is giving us an understanding, likewise, of the fact that the very first humans who got the privilege of coming to this world, Adam and Eve, our great great grandparents, they had an experience of the Almighty, a direct experience. I'm not too sure whether they saw him or not. Probably, most probably, they heard him, but it was a direct experience. They were given the opportunity to live in a certain garden, and for how long did they live? We don't know, but it was a real incident, a real experience. And then they were asked to go and live in the world and live for the trial that the Almighty had designed for them. Quite obviously, I mean, when they had their children, they had the opportunity of talking to them. I mean, what would they have been talking about? I mean, honestly, God, we have got so many things to do now, but back then there was nothing to do. There was so much of time. They must not have been talking about anything quite as much as about this particular experience of theirs. I mean, they must have been telling their kids that, okay, this is what happened. This is what your mama did, and this is what your papa did. No. They must have been mentioning it, in various different ways. So, and it's not possible that the children must not have talked about the same facts to their children and so on. That's how stories and legends, they are there in all cultures. And this understanding of God, the creator, is a household name. It's a household reality all across the globe. Quite apart from other reasons, because of this reason as well. Because it was an experience which was, uh, it was a reality, real experience that happened in the life of Adam and Eve, and they shared it. But the most important reason why the Quran expects us to believe in God is the intellect that we have. Uh, the Quran tells us that, the intuitive ability of us to know things, as well as the realities that we perceive through our five senses. When we make use of them, and the Quran urges very strongly that we should see the world around us, and we should listen to us with an open mind attentively, and so on. The Quran enables us to think in a way that we draw a few conclusions. For instance, one conclusion that we draw as a consequence of our observation living in this world is that this world has discipline, control. It's not that things are happening haphazardly. They're happening in a way that things seem to be disciplined. You know, we know, for instance, that uh, the day emerges at a particular point in time, that the timings are so precise, perfect, that they don't go wrong. Um, we know that we have got heavenly bodies, stars, planets. They are so great in number that we still don't have a measure of them, and they're all going through their own processes, their own orbits, and then they're traveling. And it's not that there's chaos; everything is there, and we don't hear about huge accidents, collisions that would cause our existence, the existence of this planet to be endangered. Uh, I quite often help myself and others understand what this argument is all about. We have uh, cars, vehicles on the roads, and we find, for instance, in Canada, in the Western countries, uh, there is discipline in traffic. Accidents do take place, but more often than not, what you see is that there is discipline, the laws are followed properly. And unfortunately, back home in Pakistan, that's not the case. You go on the roads and there is chaos. It's not that what is happening here is accidental and what is happening there is accidental too. No, there has been a lot of effort, work that has undergone in order for this discipline to come about. You've got traffic rules, you've got principles, rules that are followed while giving you license. If you violate traffic rules, then your license is in danger of being taken back, etc. So what I'm saying is that it's not a fluke that the traffic here is disciplined, and it's not a fluke that the world that you are a part of is also disciplined. So that's one of the conclusions that the Quran would want the reader to draw. The other conclusion that you can't avoid coming to is that the life that we are living in, quite apart from being disciplined, has providence. By providence, what it means is that it is providing for us, providing for our needs. We humans, when we come to this world, in order for us to survive, we've got so many numerous needs, which, if they are not properly catered for, will not be able to survive. And lo and behold, they're all there. I mean, the air is with that precise combination of gases, which if it was not the same percentage combination, we wouldn't have survived. We need water, it's there. We need food, it's there, and so on. And the more humans learn about the life and our own needs, the more we come to this understanding that what we are needing in this world to live is being provided for. So, you believe in anything or not, you can't deny the presence of discipline, the presence of providence. And then, let's face it. I mean, life is tough. There are difficulties, there are problems, there are tensions. You can complain and so on, and yet we love it. You know, you ask me, would I like to leave this world? No, we love it. That's why humans have this very strong urge within them to make this life as good as possible, comfortable, brilliant, enjoyable. Uh, that's all. That's what causes this race in this life between humans to outperform others, to do well, because we love it. What did we do for it? What did we do to get it? Nothing. So, I mean, that brings us, according to the Quranic understanding, to another conclusion that there is something called mercy that's also what you see and experience in the life. This life. You see, mercy is something over and above justice. You know, justice is that you did something for me and I paid you back equally. But if I did not do anything for you, and you've been so kind to me for no justifiable contribution from my part, that's what mercy is. And the world that we are living in, it gives us an indication. It's probably we are using our intellect properly, that there is mercy around. And finally, we also learn from understanding the Quran that if we look at the life that we are living in, it also has what the Quran describes as wisdom. Wisdom, quite apart from other meanings, other aspects, dimensions of its meanings, uh, also has this understanding of uh, planning. You need to do something, and you plan for it in a way that it's subtle. You can see it, but it really has various different aspects which takes time for you to realize, to appreciate. So, I mean, this life is full of wisdom. Just to give you a simple example, uh, it seems that there was a purpose in this life that needed to be addressed for newborn babies to be taken care of. Now, human babies, children, they are vulnerable. Unlike many other living beings, they need a few years of care and attention on the part of some people who devote themselves for that cause, or else they will not survive. It's not possible. And it is not an easy exercise, something that requires attention, sacrifice, and effort, etc. So what happens is that even before coming to this world and immediately after they arrive in this life, they are welcome. They are given what you call a red carpet welcome by the parents, by others, because there is this love, concern, sympathy for the babies, for the children who come. So you see the planning, there was something that was needed to be done, the care and attention for the kids, and there is something that is therefore arranged so that that need is satisfied, love and sympathy amongst the parents. So what I'm saying is That the Quran tells us that we should use our intellect, we should see the world around us, and we should see for ourselves the manifestation of control, of providence, of mercy, of wisdom, etc. The Quran tells us that if somebody has had the privilege of looking at this world from that point of view, using his her intellect honestly, then such a person would be desperately looking for the answer. Why is it happening? Who is doing it? And the Quran says that uh, there's only one answer. And the answer, if somebody gets it properly, he or she would be able to come to an understanding that would be as if it would be light in the darkness of confusion, of in the darkness of lack of understanding. Uh, you know, it's like in a jigsaw puzzle, you've got pieces scattered across, and you're asking an intelligent child to bring them together and make a complete picture. And the picture, when gets completed, you can see for yourself that that's what the solution is. That's what the answer is. This life, if we bother to think about it properly, and sometimes find occasions for us to move away from our basic needs, our interest in the worldly, interests that we indulge in. Uh, these different questions need to be answered. And the Quran says that it is only God, Allah, Nur Samawati wal Ard. He is the light of the heavens and the earth. That is, if you believe in Allah, in God, then you will get the answer to all these questions. He is the one who controls. He is the one who is provident, provides. He is Qadir. He is Rab. He is Rahman, Rahim, merciful, and he is Hakim. He is wise. And the very fact that you are introduced to God properly through his attributes, and the jigsaw puzzle is solved. The darkness gives way to light, and you feel good about it. You also feel good about it, as I said earlier, because you already have God in your nature. You know him intuitively. You already met him. So, therefore, the Quran says that belief in God is something that is natural. There's no way out. The next belief that we have been asked to accept is belief in life hereafter. The Quran addresses two questions regarding life hereafter. One is, why should there be a life hereafter? What is the reason? And the other is, how is it possible? So, to the first question, the Quran says basically two things. One is that this life that we are a part of, it doesn't make sense. It's absurd if you do not have the understanding, clear, confident understanding of another life. And it explains this understanding by referring to a principle that the Almighty uh, had all along kept in the planning of this world, and that is the principle of pairs. Whatever He created in this world, He created in pairs. Why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, so that you may think and ponder. So, as far as pairs are concerned, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ. What happens is that in a pair, there are two partners. One partner has certain strengths, virtues, qualities, good qualities, but has flaws and weaknesses, which are taken care of and compensated by the other partner, who in turn has his, her problems which are again taken care of by the other partner. And the two together, they form a pair. So that the Almighty tells us that whether it's humans, whether it's animals, whether it's plants, whether it's day and night, whether it's the heavens and the earth, etc., everything has been created in pairs. Why? So that you may reflect and ponder. About what? About the fact that this life of yours is also only one partner of a pair. On its own, it's quite as incomplete as a man is without a woman, as the heavens are without the earth, as the day is without a night, and so on. So the Quran then goes on to tell us that despite the brilliance of this life, the attractiveness, the glamour of this life, it has certain inherent flaws, which, if they are not addressed, it would be, I mean, it would not make sense. It would be absurd. It would be a phenomenon which would not make sense because life in general has pairs. And here you have a partner, a lonely partner, you know, has no other partner. And this partner is not making any sense. Why is this partner, this life is not making sense? Well, because number one, this life is not fair. There's so much of injustice in this life. So, I mean, despite the fact that we like what we, whatever we are getting, but we also know that life is unfair. People are unfair. Not, everybody doesn't get the same chance, same experience, same opportunities. Uh, and therefore, given the fact that this life is unfair, it's it's not complete. Likewise, in this life, uh, we have another problem. The problem we all know that, as I said, we love this life, we like it. But you know what? There are sorrows in this life. I mean, is it not a fact that we live with some of our very dear family members and they've left us, and we feel, sad. And then we have a fear as well for the future. I mean, this life is therefore either fear of the future or sorrows of the past, which continue to make it a less than ideal life. It is problematic. Uh, and then, we have within us this conscience, which remains uncomfortable when we see things going wrong. Injustice is one of them, but there are many other problems. Um, so, I mean, you feel uncomfortable. Why is this happening? Why did he say that? Why did I do that? So, I mean, it's problematic. What I'm saying is life is brilliant, and yet it's problematic. And last but not the least, while we all would want to live on, well, most of us, there could be some exceptions. None of us would want to die. We don't want to die. We don't want our dear ones to die. But die, we all must. And it's a big problem. We don't want that. Death is unnatural. Imagine, we all know that we all have got to die. We all know that those who've died had to die. Nobody. There's one thing about which all humanity as yet is completely, unanimous. We all have to die. And yet we don't want that. This is because, I mean, death is unnatural. When we are sad at the death of somebody, it's because we don't accept it. It actually is a very silent, sometimes not too silent, protest. This should not have happened. So what I'm saying is that the Quran tells us that this life of ours is is incomplete. It's a partner of a pair. The Quran tells us that the other partner is the life hereafter. And unless you believe in and accept the next life, this life is meaningless, absurd. It's not, it's not making sense. And that life life hereafter takes care of the problems of this life by, for example, ensuring the Almighty tells us, guarantees that there is going to be complete justice in the next life. The Almighty says, "Wama ana bizallamin lil abid." I'm not going to be unfair to my servants by the slightest of margins. So, problem here, it's solved by the other part. The other problem is that we have the sorrows of the past and the fears of the future. Uh, the Almighty, when He describes the paradise, uh, in one statement, He says, it's a place where they will have no fears of the future, nor any sorrows of the past. So, again, this problem will be taken care of. The problem of our conscience, the Quran tells us that the reason why the life hereafter is going to happen is that Allah would want all the expectations of human conscience to be completely satisfied and fulfilled on that day. And that is why there is this conscience within us. It is a reason, an argument, an ayah, a sign of the life hereafter. And last but not the least, uh, there's going to be no death in the life hereafter. The problem of death is going to be removed. So it is a perfect partner of this life. Now, why would that life need a partner of worldly life? Well, the reason is that life, the next life, is going to be meaningless if it was not preceded by a life of trial. The next life is the life of the result. And this life is a life of a trial. So without a trial, if you live in the heaven, that doesn't make sense. So you will be made to earn your Jannah, your heaven. So what I'm saying is that the Quran tells us that we should believe in the life hereafter. Why do we need life hereafter? As I said, because without the life hereafter, this life doesn't make sense. I keep saying to people that the very intelligent, wise, and good people of the Western society, they indulge in alcohol and drugs, etc., because they have to. I mean, what else can they do? I mean, it is living this life is problematic. It's gloomy. There's no hope. So what else can they do? So it helps them at least in the weekend to just have their minds shut, and so that they don't worry. So this is what the Quran mentions about why should there be life hereafter. The other answer that the Quran provides is that if you believe in God, then you've got to believe in life hereafter. Why? Because God has certain attributes which, if you understand them properly, you can't justify them unless you believe in life hereafter. For example, God has knowledge. Uh, sorry, God has justice. His justice, I mean, obviously, we keep saying that God is just and He's fair. But where is justice? I mean, there's no justice in this life. And the only proper, valid answer is that justice is going to be provided by the Almighty in the next life, right? God provides us with whatever we need, and therefore there's going to be life hereafter because, the whatever blessings we have been given will have to be answerable for them. God is wise, and therefore there has to be life hereafter because if there is no next life, then this life is a very unwise decision. It doesn't make sense. Why would a wise God do something that is not making sense? So, in other words, the Quran tells us that the Almighty, if you really believe in Him, there has to be life hereafter. And there is another uh, virtue, attribute of God that is mentioned that leads to life hereafter, and that is His mercy. How can a merciful God tolerate the fact that there are some people who are being treated in a way which is absolutely unjust, unfair? It's not possible. So it is His mercy that is going to be the reason why there would be another life. How is the next life going to be possible? Uh, well, again, there are two questions. One is, how are humans going to be recreated? The Quran tells us it should not be a problem for any wise, intelligent person to know that the one who created this life for the first time will be able to create it again. The Quran tells us that, the plants that you see growing, even after the soil was completely dead, dry, there was no life on it. And then every year, every season, you have plants growing. That is an indication of the fact that one day you will also be brought back to life. That should not be a problem for the Creator. Uh, he has created this world and he can create this world again. That's what the Quran keeps telling us. And finally, the last question is, how is it going to be possible for the information that would be needed for the accountability process to be possible? Well, the Quran tells us that God has complete knowledge. He knows what you're doing. He knows what you do in the public. He knows what you do alone, and he knows your intentions as well. The Almighty tells us that each human has two angels who are all the time alert and making note of whatever we do. The Quran tells us that the parts of our body, the limbs of our body that we make use of to do good or bad things are going to be witnesses on the day of judgment. The Quran tells us that people around us, they are also going to be involved in the process of the accountability, and decisions are going to be taken in a way that everybody is going to be treated completely, perfectly, as far as justice is concerned. So there is no reason why the life hereafter should be doubted. Uh, it was this brief mention of the arguments of these two beliefs that I wanted to present this afternoon. Thank you very much for your patience.